When considering the great composers of the 20th century, certain names stand out. Gershwin, Berlin, Cohan, and of course, Lennon and McCartney. The Beatles' rags to riches story has become legend in the annals of popular music. What was their secret? Were they prodigies? Or just lucky? Recently uncovered documents suggest something else. Here, at last, is the untold story of the Beatles' success. It is a story of scandal, death, and bribery that has waited 50 years to be told. The story of a man whose music would change the world. The story of Harold Stinky Blackwater.
Harold Blackwater was born in Liverpool in 1933. The son of vaudeville ventriloquist Jack "Lippy" Blackwater. Show business was in his blood. As a young boy, he was an introvert. His shaggy hair and unkempt appearance earned him the nickname Stinky Dishwater.
The name stuck. Stinky's musical talent was apparent from an early age. He composed his first song, Mum's Been Boiling Meat All Afternoon, at the age of 2.5. By his teens, he was writing music decades ahead of its time. His songwriting style would influence the world for generations to come, though he would not live to see it.
And floating inside, to my surprise, dentures of wood.
But how does the Stinky Blackwater story tie into the Beatles?
He lived next door to Julian Lennon on Menlo Avenue. Stinky, he's a player's neighbour, gets his own time, but he's mostly a loner. Kept to himself, man. He used to lock himself up in his room and play his mum's piano all day. Nobody really knows that.
By the mid-50s, Stinky was hooked by rock and roll and had dreams of becoming a star like Elvis Presley. And so, when he was old enough, he became a cop.
And I'll be bigger than 1, 2, 3, 4 Elvis Presley. Millions of girls at my feet. I could do much worse. 1, 2, 3, 4 Elvis Presley. Walking different.
The Liverpool police force must have been desperate at the time. No one really knows why he went into law enforcement. He wasn't really good at it. But he never stopped writing music. He had a notebook in which he kept all his songs and carried it with him everywhere. He was rarely seen without it.
When the fog settles down.
Then, on a dark day in July 1958, Stinky was driving home from a local pub. As usual, he was scribbling in his notebook while driving. Suddenly, a young woman stepped out in front of Stinky's car. John Lennon's mother, Julia.
Tomorrow's come and gone to stay. The day after yesterday. Ever since our day.
That's right, Stinky Blackwater was the off-duty cop who ran down and killed John Lennon's mother. Now this is where the history books and the truth diverge. What happened next would change the face of popular music forever.
Stinky was killed in the accident too. His notebook was strewn all over the street amongst the blood and broken glass. Who picks up all the papers? But 17-year-old John Lennon. The rest is history. John would share the contents of this notebook with his partner Paul McCartney, and together they would steal ideas from this notebook to become the most famous songwriting team in rock history. So you see, this priceless collection of songs and lyrics is the single most important artifact in the history. Oh,
Bruce Hilton is Stinky Blackwater's second cousin twice removed.
Somebody get a towel!
On his mother's side, and the only living descendant of the Blackwater family. As soon as the Beatles hit the airwaves, the Blackwater family suspected the shocking truth about the music's origins. They were understandably outraged.
I just saw something I didn't want to see. Oh, baby, it's black.
Keep in mind, the Beatles were adored all over the world. They had made Great Britain the cultural mecca of pop music and fashion. The Beatles' legacy could not have survived the exposure of this scandal. England wouldn't have survived it, and so the Beatles, in conjunction with the British government, decided it had to be squashed.
A massive monetary settlement was awarded to keep the Blackwater family quiet. This financial blow forced the Beatles' company, Apple Corps, to file for bankruptcy.
Who knows what horrors this will bring?
Everyone knows that Apple went bankrupt in the late 60s, and stories were concocted about the cause. Bad investments, hippie business approach, whatever. But the real reason was to cover up the fact that all the Beatles songs were stolen from ideas laid down by Stinky Blackwater in this notebook.
As a result of the 1969 settlement, a 40-year gag order was imposed on both parties. The notebook was returned to the Blackwater family, and without it, the Beatles were left to their own meager songwriting talents. They had no choice but to disband and pursue solo careers.
So it goes, heaven knows, feeling comes and the feeling goes.
The music each Beatle produced in their solo years, not so good. And it was attributed to no longer having the magic Beatle collaboration. But the truth is, without Stinky's notebook, they were floundering. The free ride was over.
Now that 40 years have passed, the gag order has been lifted, and the truth can at last be told. Bruce Hilton and his band, the Digbees, have painstakingly recorded many of the songs from the Blackwater notebook, attempting to stay true to the original notation. Now the world can finally know the truth and hear these songs as they were written. How much did the Beatles borrow from these songs? You be the judge.
Sergeant Pepper's spray self-defense seminar.
So grab a partner and spray away!
Sergeant Pepper's
Next, explore the music of Harold Stinky Blackwater as interpreted by the Digbees. Join us as we get under the helmet of the greatest musical genius of the 20th century.
Like a nasty boy, a little pain never hurt anyone. You're such a pathetic pack of toads. You should have stayed at home today.